Hello everybody, it's your proverbial boy Sotep here, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how I colour my images using marker pens. So grab your pen, grab your pencils and paper, and let's get into this. Okay then, so the first thing I'm going to do before I start adding colour to the image is actually line the entire drawing. There's a few things I want to point out which I always like to incorporate into my artwork, and that are things that I pay most attention to is the line thicknesses, so how some lines are thick and others are thinner, and the colour of each line. So what I normally do is, say for example in this face I'm going to do the face browns. I'm going to pick a dark brown to actually line the face, and with the jacket and hat I'm going for greys, so I'm going for a black to line the jacket and the hat. And as you can see here, I'm just going to outline the outside of the face. And as I said previously, I'm using a dark brown pen. And it's good before you start to outline your image is to break down which parts are going to be a certain colour, and then find the darkest tone to line your drawing. This makes it a lot easier than to add the shades in the face later on. And it gives it a much more sort of authentic, graffiti style look, instead of all being one flat line around the whole image. It adds a hell of a lot more dimension. And when you actually come to spray painting the work, it gives you more of a unique look. It just looks a hell of a lot better than just putting a black line around it all, which is you see a lot of amateur artists do. So try and mix it up. If you're going for something that's green, dark greens for the outline. Going for something that's blue, dark blues for the outline, and vice versa. And a quick tip which I like to do in my work is put a thicker line around the outside of the face, just to hold the inside of the face a lot stronger. If you look about the line I'm putting around the nose, it's thinner than the line that's on the left, and this just adds a different sort of dimension. And if you keep practicing with shapes, you start to come with terms of, if something's more forward, you want the lines to be thicker. If it's more pushed back, the lines will then become thinner. And just see this as the more you practice and the more you carry on doing your work. So right now I'm just gonna start lining around the eye, and the cool little technique is to actually flick the pen when your line's about to end. So you drag the pen along, and when you think you're going up to the end of the line, just give it a flick. And what you want to do is then double line it. So go a little bit above the first line and do the same, and then try and flick it at the same point. This will give you a natural thickness where the line will start off thick and come down to a small point. That too adds a lot more dynamic to your complete image, as well as adding the thick lines individually and the thin lines. So start off thick and end with a thin line. And now using that technique, I'm just working on the folds and creases on the forehead, as well as the bridge of the nose. If you see from the left side of the nose, I'm starting off thick, so it's more forward, and then as I'm coming with the curves, I do the same flicking technique, always bringing my line to a sharp end. And I promise you, if you incorporate these small techniques into your artwork now, you will see big differences compared to your old work. It's small techniques like this, line thicknesses. One of the things I'd learned was, as soon as I added to my artwork, it increased by tenfold. I was so used to doing images, black pen, same line the whole thing, just one pen, one line, and the image is flat. These small techniques of having the thick line and flick to the small line, it really does show in your artwork. Give it a try, and I promise you, you will see really good results with this one. So now I'm just continuing with the brown line around everything that has a skin tone I'm going to add later on. So you're going to have to think about your image a little bit and think, right, this is going to be the skin tone, this is where the clothes starts and the skin starts. So anything where I'm going to add browns later on, just keep lining it with that brown colour. And later on I'm going to start lining the clothing with the black, because I know later on I'm going to start adding the greys. Now here's where I'm going to change the colour for the first time on the face. Instead of adding the browns where the skin tone is going to be, I'm going to have to think about things like the eyebrows, the beard and the eyelashes. So where I actually place the eye, I'm going to do a black line on the top of it for the eyelash. This also gives a lot more dimension because it shows you've got a bit of thought behind it, where the skin is brown, and obviously in real life the eyelash will be black. And obviously depending on the eyebrow colour, here I'm going for the black eyebrow, so I'm just going to actually do the whole eyebrow completely black as well as the beard. So hopefully now you can start seeing the whole image come together. Now a lot of other artists are quite loose and they like just to go with the flow and add a lot of layers, but for my illustration work I like to keep it as tidy as I can and neat from beginning to end. And I think that might be just a bit inside of me, like my OCD. Some artists stay messy, some like it super clean, and this is why at this stage I'm filling in the eyebrows now. I want my line work to be thick and crisp, so when it actually comes to the colouring stage I can see the progress bit by bit instead of starting off as a mess and building up. Now that process is brilliant for oil painting, but for illustration I have to completely change my mindset and start backwards and keep it tidy and tight the whole way through. And try and understand as I'm doing this, these are the techniques that through time and repetition I have found work for me. Now you are an individual and have your own unique style, so really find out the best ways that suit you, because every artist is different, and once you find how you work best, that's when you will create the best work you're going to create. So like I said, these are just techniques which I have found, but you must find your own way. So to keep practicing these things, incorporate some techniques. You might find out the line fixes don't work for you, but just see, experiment and go with what feels right to you. And now here I'm just using the dark brown tone that I'm used to the face to do the hands, because obviously they're going to be the same sort of skin tone. So using the same technique, thick around the outside, so quite a thick power line going around the whole outside, but as I come into the actual fingers, thinner lines to eventually a flick. And now I'm happy all the skin tones are in place and I have the line fit. This is exactly how I want him. I'm going to move on to the next colour, which will be black, and that's for the jacket and the hat. Now if this was a green jacket, I would be doing a dark green. Like I said, if it's like a pink, dark pink for the outline. So for this one, I thought beforehand I want to do it greys, dark greys. So the darkest grey in the range of a shade would be black. So I'm just going to use the black pen now to line it in the same way. Big outline, thin lines inward. And similar principles to before. If things are further back in the image, I like to do the line work a lot more thinner than if it's actually forward. So if you look at his right arm, I'm going to do the lines around the sleeve a lot more thicker, so more of a power line, so it brings that bit forward. And the further back, I'm going to keep the lines nice and thin and just keep them all sharp. This gives your image a completely different sense of depth and contrast, which just makes the image entirely unique to itself. And now also for the spray can, I'm going to do the same as the jacket. I want to do it dark greys, so I'm going to put a black line around the whole thing. It's the same principle as the character, and I use the same principle throughout a lot of my characters. If you've been following my work for a while, you'll see a lot of line work actually translate to each image. Same things, power lines and thin lines. And now here I'm just going to speed things up a little bit, because on the hat I'm going to use the black pen, and I'm just going to use the same principles I've talked throughout the whole lining process, which is obviously thick line on the outside, thin lines on the inside. Just keep that in mind when you're doing your drawings or you're lining an image yourself. Is try a thick line on the outside, thin on the inside. And now before we move on to the next step of actually adding colour to the image, just look at your image as a whole and make sure you're happy with it and you have everything in place, and this will help the colouring process be a lot easier, because you just see from the lines where certain shades are going to fall, like around the eyes or on the cheekbones. So yeah, revise your image once the line work, you feel the line work is complete, and also use a rubber and just take out a few guidelines which are left over, and then you should be ready to add the colour. And now it's time for the colouring part, and for this I want to keep it as simple as possible. So for the skin itself, I'm going for the brown colours, and I'm only going to pick one pen for dark, one for a medium colour and one for light. I'm only going to choose 3 tones for the whole skin of this image. So I've got my dark brown, my mid brown, and my light. For this tutorial, I just want to keep it simple for you so you can really grasp how I'm blending my colours. So I'm only going to pick 3 colours just to show you this. Now the first place I'm going to start is on the eyelid. I'm going to use the lightest colour first, so the lightest brown, and just colour in the whole section, just to put down the base tone. Then from there, I'm going to move up 1 to the mid colour. I'm not going to the dark straight away, I'm just going to work with the mid and light, just to keep it simple, just to pick up the 2 shades, and later on I'm going to add the darker tones. Now where I'm adding the middle tone underneath where the eyebrow will be, I'm then putting a little bit of the middle tone down, then picking up the lightest tone, and while the ink is still wet on the paper, using the light tone to drag it out. By doing this, it gives it a smooth transition from the mid tone to the light tone. Now using the same technique I used for above the eye, I'm going to use the same below the eye. Starting off with the lightest tone first and colouring in the area, and then moving on to the middle tone. As I put a bit of the middle tone down, I then use the lighter tone to drag the ink across, giving it a natural and smooth transition of colour. Just to keep it simple, once again, I'm just using the 2 tones, middle and light. The dark hasn't come into play yet. So base down, middle, and use the light to drag it across. Now that I've put down a few tones, I can see where I want to place my darker tone. So using the darkest brown, I'm going to add it underneath the eye fold here, and this will give the rest of the eye a lot more depth and actually bring the eye forward, which is what I'm trying to accomplish here. So first I start with the middle and light, and now I'm adding the darkest tone, which I said before gives it a lot more depth. And the same technique, you can use the dark, then switch to the middle to pull the dark along, and then switch to the light to continue pulling that colour along, giving you a smooth transition from dark to light. And now this is, if you see my earlier video of how to sketch a graffiti character, I speak about leaving the pencil marks, so later on when it comes to the colouring stage, you already know where you're going to place your dark and your mid and light tones, and this is where it really comes in handy at this stage. So now around the eye, I have a rough guide where I'm already going to place my dark, medium and light, and with the same technique of laying the darker tone, switch to the mid while it's still wet and pull it across to where you want to take the mid tone, and eventually to the lighter tones. You can keep blending this, you can even do it so if you do it once and it looks a bit rough, once again take to the dark, medium and light, and keep blending until you get to the lightest tone, starting from dark to light, getting a nice smooth transition. Now for the cheek here, I'm just going to use my light tone and colour in the whole area. Then I want to give it more of a rounded shape, so I'm using the mid tone to do a line going across the cheek, then using the lighter tone to pull it down. And this is where you see the technique that I keep speaking about of mid to light and drag it down. It gives the whole image a lot more dimension and a 3D look. And also I'm playing on anatomy a little bit here. Obviously the anatomy isn't correct because it's not a portrait, but I'm using a lot of things you'd see in real life to my art. And also, as a little side note, that's why it's so important to study from real life or human anatomy, because when it comes to your character work, it really does pay dividends. You really do see the results. It allows you to accentuate things, add a lot more dynamic to your image, because you're taking from real life and it's just correct, but then you start to almost morph certain shapes and it gives your character work a whole new breath of life. It's quite incredible. So yeah, just keep researching and studying from real life and then incorporate it into your characters. And now using the same technique I said earlier, starting off with the light first to put down the base colour, move on to the medium, using the light to pull the medium across, and then eventually to your darker tones, given just 3 tones, so it's dark, medium, light. I'm just trying to keep this simple, like I keep saying, just because it illustrates the techniques more than overcomplicating things. So if you know anatomy, you'll know how the nose goes and the eyes and the lips, and this will be a whole set of different tutorials I can get into later on down the line, but for now I just really want to show you the techniques, how I do my shading on each character and the line work. And if you do have a few troubles with knowing where to place each color on your image, there's always the option to choose or look at reference. There's loads of reference you can find on Pinterest, Google, or any other image-based website. You can just find images where the light is hitting in direction how you're drawing your character. So if you're drawing a character from the right, look for portraits which are facing the same direction and pinpoint the light sources. This gives you a great foundation of where the lights will be. But once again, because it's a character, sometimes you might exaggerate certain things, and that's where a lot of the fun elements into actual design come in, because you really it really allows you to put your own twist on your image. So don't be afraid to exaggerate or experiment with different ways you want to hit the light source, because the more difference and style you can add, the more unique your final image will actually be, and that is the essence of creating your own style. And now here I'm just going to move on to the hands. Figuring out where the light falls on the hands is another thing you're going to have to go away and study at. If you guys want to see a tutorial on hands, let me know in the comment section. I can give you a few more pointers on how the lights fall in. But before I even start to add the colour, I like to get a pencil and just shade out a rough guide so I get an understanding if it looks correct or not to my eye. It's always good to use pencil first, and then once you're happy with it, give it a bit of a little small raise so you can get rid of a few of the dirty lines, and then add the colour on top, starting from the light, medium, and then obviously to the dark at the end. So the same principle with the face, I'm bringing over to the hands. Once you get the techniques down, they apply throughout a lot of your artwork, and then you can add more colours. You can add greys upon your browns to add cooler effects, or yellows on top of your browns to add more of a warm colour. And I think that would do me for now for the skin tone, using the 3 browns. After I've done the skin tone, now I'm going to move on to the clothing, which is going to be dark greys. So using the same exact principle as I did with the browns, picking up a medium, dark and light, I do the exact same for the jacket. And obviously I'm going for greys. I'm going to pick a colour close to black, so a dark grey, a mid grey and a light grey, and these will be my colours for my jacket and the hat. And if you haven't guessed already, not only is it the same principles of picking a medium, dark and light, I'm also using the exact same technique as I did in the face, which is to lay down the base coat, then add the middle, and then from there I keep going around the whole of the jacket until I come to a conclusion of where I want to add my dark tones later on down the line. So to start off with the medium and light tones, picking out which tones you want, which tones look best for your image, and then I start to decide, okay, I want to pick the real dark tones here, because it's the dark tones that add a lot of depth to your final image, so really use that for your advantage. And obviously the bigger the gap between your darkest tone and your lightest tone is where you will find the biggest amount of contrast. And for my work, I love heightening up the contrast, so always go for the darkest dark and the lightest light of that colour. And that's also why I like to pick the darkest colour for the outline when I'm doing the outline process. But for now, medium, then light, blend, then concentrate on the darker tones. And here I'm just going to do the back of the jacket, so the inside where it folds, and then I'm going to do it really dark so it brings the front of the jacket to the foreground. And now I'm just going to speed a few things up here, because I'm just using the same techniques as before, using the mid, using the light to drag the colour across, and I'm just going to repeat that same technique throughout the rest of the clothing. Now I hope here you finally get a good understanding that a lot of the techniques and principles are repeated throughout the image. So once you start to hone in these techniques, you can use them again and again, adding colours, adding more variation, and adding more of a complexity to your image. But first I just want to show you the foundation of just using 3 colours. The palette is so limited, but by keeping it simple, it allows me to concentrate on the look and the desire of the image I want to go for. And now I'm going to show you a secret tip. after I've put all the colours down using the Copic markers, I'm going to add something a lot of people don't know about, and that is pulling out the white Faber-Castell pencil. This is what I use to highlight certain areas, and once it's laid over the Copic pen, it gives it this really metallic look, which I think looks incredible. So definitely, if I was you, invest in a solid white pencil. It's a Prismacolor, and then use it as a highlighter, and over the certain areas of grey or in the skin tone, I can pick out a whole new lighter tone, which adds a lot more dimension and can also give you more of an effect that shows that you've used more colours when in reality you've only used a white pencil over the top. So yeah, definitely invest in a white and also a black pencil, because you can use a black pencil too on the darker tones, and it gives you a deeper variation of depth. And there we have it, guys. That is how I colour my image using marker pens. Now here I'm just adding a few things in the background. I'm adding a traditional Sootep, using the colours just to block in some squares to sort of give a building look, some shapes in the background, just give it more variation. This is just filler really, but in this lesson I really just want to show you guys how I line and colour my images. I really hope you guys learn something from this and can actually take things and implement these techniques in your own artwork. And if you do try these techniques, let me know in the comment section how you got along with them. If they worked for you, amazing. I'm so happy you took something from it. And if they didn't work for you, leave a reply, but at least you tried it. Now you have a great understanding of what doesn't work for you, so give it a go. And as always, it brings me great joy that I can actually bring these lessons to you guys. It's so rewarding knowing the fact that as an art community you can all just grow together and work together just to achieve more and get better. So I really hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you want to see anything more or any other different style variations or anything I can give to you guys, like always, leave a comment. It really does mean a lot to me. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube drama stuff, and till next time, peace.